Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Nicerius. Let's get this video started. So today, I know it's been a while since I posted a video. I've been really busy, one with Tower Fantasy, but with some other stuff, and I haven't felt that well, but none of that matters. Let's get into the video. So today, I'm making a beginner advice video. This isn't necessarily a Lance advice video, but I am going to be talking about some stuff Lance specific. But let's get into it. So, optimal DPS. And essentially, how much should you actually be worried about it as a beginner player or even as just an average player, right? And the answer is not very much, honestly. From the vast majority of weapons, the optimal DPS option is also a very conditional option. And trying to spam your optimal DPS often isn't actually as optimal as it seems, unless you really know what you're doing, right? And again, this is the case for most weapons, but for like Lance, for example, one of your optimal DPS is to use guard dash and to essentially just spam leaping thrust, and then maybe you do 2 pokes or you do a charge wide sweep or something, right? But unless you really know what you're doing, this isn't as easy as it sounds, right? The monster's moving around, so if you don't know your positioning very well, you're not going to be able to line things up correctly. If you don't know the monster movesets, you're not going to know exactly when you should be guard dashing, when you shouldn't be guard dashing, and things like that, right? Basically, there's just more knowledge to it than just spam leaping thrust, right? There's more to it than just spam leaping thrust forehead, right? But, and I'm not saying, all the people doing this, but a lot of times if you go to people asking for like, how do you play this? How do you play X weapon, right? How do you play a weapon? Well, they'll give you the optimal combos and say, spam this, right? Without really expanding on that, right? And the main thing I want to say is, especially if you're a new player, don't be obsessed with optimal DPS, because even if you spam the optimal DPS option, you will probably do less DPS than just playing normally, right? And this especially goes for Lance. To play Lance optimally is a very difficult thing. You have to know your moveset very well, you have to know the monster very well, and it's very knowledge based, right? And then again, this is the case for most weapons. Playing optimal is more of a knowledge game than necessarily a skill game, right? Obviously there's skill involved, but the knowledge is even more important in my opinion. And to get into Lance specifics, and if you're not a Lance man, you'll have to translate this into your relative or into that weapon's optimal combos and stuff. So like with Lance, right, the optimal thing is to run guard dash and essentially just leaping thrust stuff, right? But if you don't know what you're doing, well, that's not exactly the easiest thing in the world. The monster's moving around, and maybe your positioning is bad, and it turns out leaping thrust isn't as easy as it seems, right? And if you watch my other videos, you'll know I actually still recommend shield tackle over guard dash for the average player, even though guard dash is better DPS theoretically, right? And that's because shield tackle just brings so much utility, so much ease of use to the weapon. It's much easier to use Lance with shield tackle than it is to use Lance with guard dash. Shield tackle basically just lets you do whatever you want. It brings tons of utility. Again, it has 2 ranks of natural guard. It doesn't consume stamina to use. It lets you go into insta block very quickly. It's just really good, right? It does KO damage. Just very good utility option, right? And this ends up, for the average player, typically being better than your optimal DPS option, right? And especially in a weapon like Lance that's all about just attacking constantly, keeping your damage uptime up, you want maximum consistency, right? So if you can't be consistent with your maximum DPS, you are just simply losing DPS, right? So essentially, don't obsess over optimal DPS. Use what is most consistent for you. Obviously, it's not a bad thing to try and use the optimal thing and try to improve your gameplay. You work up to that optimal playstyle, but don't be obsessed with it if you're struggling. It could be more of a detriment than it is actually helping you. And that's really all I want to talk about. I know I've seen a lot of new players who just get really obsessed with optimal DPS combos and just end up hurting themselves more than anything, right? That's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope if you're a new player, kind of got a bit of help from this. Maybe you've kind of fallen for the same bait, and maybe you can sort of just be a little less concerned with optimal stuff, right? And yeah, that's all I want to talk about in this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy and have a good one, everybody.